Welcome to Business Leadership Podcast. In this podcast, I interview successful business leaders and industry experts to help you grow your business. In this episode, I had an interesting discussion with John Ray, an accomplished podcast producer and a radio host for Business Radio X. This network stands out as a prominent player in a business radio and a podcasting scene, having conducted over 40,000 interviews in its impressive 13 years span. John's own journey with the podcasting led to remarkable success in his business, which inspired him to share this powerful tool with others. He recognized the struggle of business owners, reminiscent of his earlier challenges, and found a way to help. By merging the art of helping others with the craft of podcasting, he now guides entrepreneurs on a path to significantly boost revenue. John also recently published his new book, Generosity Mindset. I will include a link to this book below this video as well. This was very interesting discussion. John had built his own company. He had interviewed hundreds of business owners, and also he had helped so many companies to scale. During our discussion, John outlines very simple and a practical approach for business leaders to grow their companies and build a culture. He also talks about mindset, building true relationships with your client, and some common mistakes by business owners when they're trying to pricing and their services or products or building values for their clients. Hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did. Don't forget to send me your feedback. Until next time, enjoy. Hi guys, welcome to Business Leadership Podcast. Today my guest is someone very special, John Ray. John, thank you so much for time and welcome to the podcast.
Gurmeet, thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful for you, so thank you.
Welcome. So if you walk us, our audience, through what is the Business Radio X is about and how did you come up with the idea, John, to start this?
Well, so Business Radio X is a national podcast network. We're not yet to Canada or to the UK or what have you, but give us a little time. We may get there. But we're in a number of cities across the United States, and I did not start the network, so let's be clear about that. My colleague Lee Cantor started the network about 16 years ago, and the idea was that business leaders do not have a place to tell their story. And I guess another way to say it is we were podcasting before that was cool, and from a business perspective, and we provide a place for business leaders, business owners to tell their story, and we also help business leaders and owners that want to do their own podcast. We help them plan, promote, produce a show for them. So that's our basic business model, and the way we're structured is we have a whole national network of studio partners that operate their own studio and contribute their content, the shows that they host, produce, what have you, to the network. And what that does is give us a little bit of, the power of a network, right? I mean, where our shows are all grouped together, and it's easy to jump from one to another and be found if you're a part of that network. So,
very interesting, John. It's before we get to that. What are you definitely doing all the radio show? What do you learn from it? But one thing I always very interested in why this is there's so much a need for this content out there for businesses. When I started a business about 12 years ago, I wish there was somebody talking about what to do, what mistakes to avoid, what kind of what to do in a marketing and sales and when you're building a company, but there was none. So I'm not sure why there's such a lack of this content out there, or is it a hesitation on a business leaders, owners' part that they don't want to share their story? But I don't think that's the case. So, or there's no enough audience that they want to consume this content. So why is this, short of this kind of content, the people sharing stories and talking about business all the time, when there is such a need for this kind of information or content for entrepreneurs who start a business or somebody start a new company, then they so badly need this content.
You're right. And Well, I mean, thank you for contributing to that void. Okay. I mean, and
Thank
trying
you.
to bridge that void with what you're doing. But I think, and also thank you for recognizing that there is a void. Now, I think there's a misconception out there in some quarters, Gurmeet, and I don't know if you've seen this, but a lot of people are saying that, well, there's too much content out there. There are too many podcasts and so forth. And the problem is not that there are too many podcasts. The problem is there are not enough podcasts that keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, people get into it and they flame out. And a lot of times they're trying to either, if they're doing it themselves, they don't have a process set up to do it on a regular basis, right? And they don't have a commitment to do it on a regular basis, or maybe they start with too much of a frequent of a cadence. Maybe they're trying to do something weekly when they really don't have the ability to keep that up. It's easy to buy the puppy. It's another thing when the puppy is out, you're out in the front yard with the puppy at 3 a.m. going to the bathroom, and the puppy's messing up the floor. I mean, it's hard to get the puppy to the point of having a dog, right? And I think that's the problem with a podcast. Sometimes they're very easy to start. It's hard to keep it up. And I saw a stat recently that if you're just and you're one of these podcasters, by the way, so thank you for this, that if you just get to 22 podcasts that you've released, and you're a lot more than that, you're in the top 1% of podcasters.
Wow.
So just, I think the problem is it's just people start and don't keep it up. And then there's this misconception, because there are all these there's some 3 or 4 million podcasts out there, that people think that the market is saturated, and it's not.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of mind, to your point, John, that's a very good point you made. There's a lot of mindless content. There's so much content out there. There's no shortage of that. But there's also, on a business there's no many podcasts around a business, how to build a company, how to scale a company, how to develop a company. I think that's an area where we short on.
Right.
Even in that area, John, you could. I think the both content have a place for. I think the both are important. There's a consultant who could do a research on it. How to what the guys read a lot of books. They've done a lot of research. They did a lot of consulting. So they bring all the wisdom. Hey, this is what it takes to build a company. This is what it needs to do. That's the one side of content. Other side of that is somebody built a company and they learned from our mistakes, right? So I think both of those contents are required. You need both of those content exist in the market, and they both have their own place. So you could learn from somebody's research, and you can also learn from the practical. There's somebody's done that, for day in and day out, and build a company, and they have a wisdom that that they learn from the mistakes that they made in a business. Then somebody can avoid those mistakes by just listening to them. I think both of those contents are important. I can see a lot of content on a research side, on a consulting side, but I don't see a lot of business owners sharing their stories that this is what I did to build a business. Somebody can avoid some of the mistakes. I think that's where we have a little bit shortage on.
No, I totally agree. And what we advocate for business owners that want to do a podcast is to create that platform for the tribe they want to serve. So, just to use a silly example, I mean, if I have a business and my niche market are left-handed house painters, then what I need to do is create a show around left-handed house painters and have all the left-handed house painters I know, my customers, my prospective customers, and I create the left-handed house painter show. Let them tell their story. And I have the president of the Left-Handed House Painters Association on. I just serve that entire ecosystem. And when you do that, when you own the mic at the center of that ecosystem, you will build your own business, and you'll do it by serving others. See, that's the beauty of that kind of model. And so I think there are a lot of podcasts out there that where I'd call it the guru podcast. So, Seth Godin has one. Now there's only one Seth, right? I'm not Seth. So, when I come on and introduce myself, I don't say I'm John, like he says I'm Seth, right? I mean, so he's got a guru podcast because he's already got that audience. But if you create a podcast around that serves a particular ecosystem, and you let the members of that ecosystem tell their story, then you will get benefits from it. That's the kind of model that we advocate.
Right. And you learn so much going through this journey as well, right? Every conversation you have, like, you learn, it's a very good for your personal growth as well. Every discussion I had, I started with the mindset, as you mentioned, that you can serve people, but I take away from the discussion more than anybody else would, because I learned so much. I'm engaged in a discussion. So I think one of the key element business owners need to realize that how much learning there is by doing a podcast. I know they're trying to serve other people, but there's so much personal development and for their own growth that they learn from so much from the conversation they're having with other people.
There's no question about that, and that's part of the ancillary benefit of having a podcast is you learn how to ask great questions. I mean, ask catalytic questions. Questions that help promote understanding. That's one thing that you get out of it. You get out deeper relationships that extend beyond just the podcast itself. And those relationships can lead to revenue for your business. They can lead to other insights, opportunities, that you just never know. So I'm a big believer that when you serve and you build relationships, that always comes back to you.
Yeah. Very interesting. So, you've been doing this. How long have you been doing this, John? This both podcast and the radio show?
About 7.5 years now.
So you have a lot of experience talking to business owners, to business leaders. You're trying to do this. So what has been your observation? Where do you think the business leaders struggle? What do you think they're up against? When they're trying to, or they need to get the name out, or they get their business brand out. So what do you think some of the struggles are for business leaders?
Well, I think some of it depends on the size of the business, but one of the particular areas I'm passionate about, and I know we may be talking a little bit more about this as we go along, is pricing. I think that's an area where most business owners have a problem. So the last statistic I saw in the United States anyway, maybe it's better in Canada and the UK and some other places, but in the United States, only 9% of business schools have even a course devoted to pricing. So you can go through and get your MBA and a graduate degree, come out perfectly formed and ready to go when it comes to finance, marketing, operations, organizational development, your labor force. You can be trained in all this, but you still don't know how to price your product or service. And that's a problem that I think a lot of businesses struggle with at the beginning. And the problem with struggling at the beginning is that prices are a marketing signal. They're a signal of both quality and inferiority, depending on where they are relative to what customers, clients are expecting. So pricing is one problem for sure. Another one certainly is talent, lack of talent, being able to grow and get beyond the whatever stair step you're on. I think businesses grow in a stair step way a lot of times, particularly smaller and medium-sized businesses. They'll have a big spurt and then level off, and they don't know why. And part of it is talent, and they've maxed out the talent that they have, and they've got people that are at certain points in the wrong seats, and they need to reconfigure, and it's hard to do that, particularly if you're a small or medium-sized business owner and you're pretty close to your employees, and you're you're having to make tough decisions about moving people around, right? So I think that's another particular problem that I see, and I'm not identifying anyone's
No, I
or
think
anyone else hadn't already seen. So
no, those two challenges you mentioned, I think those are universal challenges if you have a business,
yep.
and those are two big challenges. There's a lot to cover on both of the challenges, right? So we may not be able to get to all the details of this discussion, but let's talk about pricing. I think the people challenge is a bigger one as well. I'll deal with it on a daily basis. We make a mistake, we fail on that, we find the right people. It's an ongoing battle. Definitely, we'll leave that for discussion. So let's talk about pricing, John. I know that's your expertise. I'm gonna get your thoughts. So is there the problem is unique to whether product or services, or is the same problem whether you look into price your product or trying to price your services? And what are the mistakes are there? Is it I know I made a mistake early in a business looking outside competition, what somebody else is pricing, and I'm gonna just copy that pricing model, right? So I made a lot of mistakes in that area as well. So where you think, is that the same problem for product and services, or is it these are two unique problems?
Well, it's a similar problem to start out, and it diverges in terms of the I think the solution, if you will, and the implementation maybe is a better word. So my focus, just so we're clear, is I work with, this is my day job. I call it my day job. I work with professional services providers on their pricing. Now, services providers, what are they pricing? They don't sell, a can of green beans or a bag of doggy treats or, tires for an automobile. What they're selling is essentially coming from the factory floor that's between their ears. They're selling their expertise. And what they're selling, therefore, is something that's highly personal. So their mindsets affect how they price. Now, you lean over back to the product side, you don't have that problem nearly as much on the product side, right? Because the product, what you're pricing, is an inanimate object that's separate from who you are as a person, who you are as a provider of service. So it's a little bit easier there, but the two ways you think about these are different for those reasons. Or at least I view it that way.
Well, product, you can pull the bill of material and you know how much is costing you, and then maybe give you a little bit of guidelines, and you can start stacking some costs on top of that admin cost and figure out what the pricing should be. But in services, there is no bill of material. Only thing you have is your time on a shelf, right? So every time I look at services, I look at there's a bunch of shelf, and on a shelf is my time and my staff's time. So that's all we're selling. We only have a time to sell, either employees or mines, right? So is that how you look at it, or you look at some, the experience consulting, that wisdom you bring, or know-hows you bring to the table, or you just looking at in terms of time, that what are you selling end of the day?
Well, that's a great question. So here's what both of them have in common. Customers buy based on the value they perceive, whether it's a product or a service. So that has nothing to do, well, first of all, that has nothing to do with our cost. So if we're pricing based exclusively on cost, then we're missing out on what the customer perceives the value of the product is. And clients have two ways to look at that. I mean, there's two categories of that value. There's tangible value and there's intangible value. And the tangible value, for a product, it's what it does, right? It's that the basic function of the product. So if I'm buying doggy treats, it's my dog loves these doggy treats. I love giving my dog these doggy treats. The intangible may be things like the fact that this product is not sourced in countries where I'm concerned about the quality of the ingredients, right? It may be the fact that I love the reaction I get from my dog when I feed my dog these doggy treats, right? There are intangibles that come from the product that go beyond just the product itself. Mm-hmm. What the marketers would say is that's part of the brand, right? I mean, so that's why a Coca-Cola or a Microsoft or these an American Express, let's say, these companies that have built these iconic brands, there are intangible value in that brand, in those brands. Mm-hmm. It's the same for services. So people buy your services in order to get something done. They maybe if you're an accountant, they buy your services to get tax returns filed and that kind of thing. But what else are they buying? They're buying intangibles like peace of mind. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're buying trust in you to get that job done. They're buying the fact that maybe you're a provider that you can explain very difficult concepts in an easy to understand way. That's another intangible. So that understanding what those intangibles are that clients look to you for helps you better set your prices.
Got it. So let me play it back, see if I get it right. So
Please.
What you're saying is that, instead of you counting your cost based on a time and all that stuff, why don't we focus that on what problem is solving in a client site? Right. It's a similar to old way of saying is the glass of water in the morning has a different value. But if I'm choking, the glass of water has a totally different value, right?
I like it. Yes. Yeah, that's right.
If I'm in a desert somewhere, the glass of water has a totally different value. Or I'm standing in front of the tap and the glass of water has a different value. So it's based on where you at in your business or what are you trying to do. Same product or service would have a totally different value to you. So why not put up pricing based on the value instead of just trying to put up a price on a glass of water itself? Is that a good
that's analogy? A great, I love the way you explain that. And let's take it one step further. It's when we say value, how do we define value? It's the client perceived value of the outcomes that the client receives, right? Mm-hmm. So in the case of the water example you mentioned, what's the value of that bottle of water when you're out in the desert? I mean, the outcome is either life or death, right? I mean,
you got it.
At an extreme. Whereas if I'm inside my home, totally different perception of value and outcome. So I can get away with not even drinking water, right? So the point is that it's the value of outcomes that people see, and those values, again, the value of outcomes are both tangible and intangible. And now here's how we complicate it. We complicate it by saying every client's got different perspectives, right?
I was going to say, I was about to ask. So if somebody's providing a service, you go through for 3-4 companies in a discussions, they all have a different problem to solve.
Right.
And if your value is going to change and you're going to change your price, there's got to be some basics you got to understand that this is to cover you, and then you can put a value on top of that, what problem you're trying to solve with your basics, right? So how do business owners go about it? How do they align with that? Hey, listen, this is what I need to, this is what it cost me, so I have an idea, so I'm not putting myself in undercutting myself, and then on top of that, this is how much value I'm delivering, so they can fairly price those two.
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously with a product company, you've got to be aware of your cost. What I would contend is when you start pricing into value, you get to a point where you don't really have to worry quite as much about whether you're covering your cost.
Yeah.
Because your costs are such a smaller proportion of perceived value that the
You're right.
client
Yep.
perceives, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it earlier about services. Services, you're basically pricing out expertise and time. And expertise and time, the marginal cost of that on the income statement could be as little as zero. If you have your own practice, your solo practice, you're not, and you don't have employees to pay for, the marginal cost of that could be zero. It's certainly very low in the services business relative to, what you would expect to get revenue wise. So the point of it is that what you've got to do is you've got to have regular ongoing conversations with clients. Now on the product side, that is a little bit more, I won't say difficult, but it's different because the surveys or the way you're talking to clients is through surveys and through I guess bigger picture kind of trends that you're seeing among your clients and your customer base, because you've got such a larger customer base spread over, this product line that you have. In the service side, it's a little bit depends on the size of the firm, but you may have to continue to do some of those surveys. But if you're a smaller service firm with a smaller base of clients, you can actually talk to your clients one-to-one on a regular basis, right? And the business development piece of it, if your business development is one-to-one, then you can have a value conversation with a client to understand what it is they're looking for in terms of outcomes and how they value those outcomes. And you can price and lean into that, how they value those outcomes in order to price your service.
Very interesting.
Does that make sense?
No, definitely. It's if you're having a one-on-one conversation, it's not what your price is, it's where do they put a value on. Right. If they put in a value on a certain items, that those are high ticket items, those are big items, then definitely you can price accordingly, right? So because you're trying to solve a much bigger problem, right? And as an expert, if you're providing service, what it takes to solve those problems, right? So you have that knowledge that what it's going to take to solve the problem the client just outlined, so you can price just accordingly how much time and effort is going to take to solve the problem.
Yes.
So is the business leaders who trying to grow our businesses, John, people are watching, listening to us, they're definitely, this is the end of the year. People looking, a lot of business leaders or colleagues are looking 2024. They're trying to scale, they're trying to build. Are there some pointers would you recommend that these are the few things they have to consider when they're pricing out their services or products? Are there general guidelines for a couple of things they must pay attention to?
Well, number one, make it a strategic function. I mean, see, most business owners don't even have this as part of their strategic plan or strategic function. They do not have a regular review of their pricing. By client, by client type, whatever makes sense for that particular business, but just have it as bring it up to the level of the other pieces of your business that you're reviewing on a regular basis. Have a plan for price increases. Don't do it in reaction to some extraordinary event, but have a plan for price increases. And what that really means is have a continual way to understand in your client base where you're delivering value and how the client views that value, right? And is that value going up? Is it going down? What's their perception of it? Remember, it's not ours, it's theirs. Yeah. So we constantly have to have some mechanism by which we're monitoring how that client is getting value out of what we're producing.
Mm-hmm. That is such an important point you just mentioned, John. Very, very interesting point. And I learned this hard way. When we were looking in a few years in a business, we were looking to scale a company, we were looking to grow. Mm-hmm. And over the 3-4 years, we kept adding more services to our portfolio. We kept delivering more. We didn't monitor the price increase. We didn't monitor the service we deliver. And we were looking to simply brainstorm, how do we gain more market share? How do we go up, get more clients? How do we grow a company? And then all of a sudden, when we start crunching those numbers, start looking, we realized that we were a little bit short on a price. We could easily grow, 15-20% price without any impact. So we were a little bit, it's the first time we were doing that. But when we increased the price, it grew a company, it grew a profit margin, and without even adding a lot of clients to the portfolio, we grew the company without even doing anything. And we thought we're going to lose the clients. We didn't lose actually a client by doing that. We actually added more client on a new value. It makes a huge difference in a business. If somebody's trying to scale a company, take a look at the pricing. We all consider that, that we are afraid of that. We don't want to price ourselves out of our market, but that is such an easy way to grow a company just by increasing a little bit of price, because you added so much value over the time.
Yeah, I'm going to get this clip of what you just said and send it to all my pricing clients. Okay. That was wonderful. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, this is, folks, this is an accounting fact. Changing your price, and you just said it, Gurmeet, changing your pricing is the fastest way to either scale your business or destroy your business.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the destroy part. If you cut prices in order to get customers, it doesn't work, first of all, because what you're doing is you're saying, well, what I was doing all this time was never worth what I was charging. Yeah. So that's the signal you're sending to people, to your clients. And you can destroy a perfectly good business by that strategy. So please don't do that. But pricing, this is, again, an accounting fact that changing your price, as you said, it all of that drops to the bottom line net of the clients who you lose because of the price change. Yeah. And if you're a product company, because of the added cost of goods sold that you might have, the change of cost of goods sold, right? So, but net pricing is the fastest way to change your bottom line, changing your price. The effects are immediate or near immediate. If you undergo a new marketing plan, if you hire salespeople, all these things you can do to scale your business, they have risk, a lot more risk, and they take more time to work out until you know that whether they've worked out or not. So, and I think part of the problem, Gurmeet, and I'm interested in your opinion on this. I think part of the problem is people associate scale with volume, not with price. They don't understand that you can scale by changing your pricing. It's not just a volume thing.
Yeah, that's one part of it. Other part of that, John, is over the time when we deliver a same service to the client, your people are getting smarter. They're getting a more experience. You're adding more value to the client because you're learning their business a lot more, right? So your value stack goes up. So why not change the price to match that up? Why keep pricing yourself on the same level where your people are learning about somebody's business? They're helping the people more. They're getting more faster on delivering services. We're getting better. We're gaining all the experience. So your service getting better, but you pricing on the same level. We didn't understand when we were trying to reevaluate it. But then we realized, it took us half of the time compared to 6 months before when we were solving problem. We were solving more problem, more faster problem, delivering more value, but at the same price. Why would you do that? Why not just match the price with the value you deliver, as you mentioned, and then grow the company that way? Yeah. And I think that you're right about that as well. That we always think about that adding more clients and adding more volume to the business to scale instead of just changing a little bit of price. And we were thinking we're going to get a pushback from our clients. Never get any pushback. And since that, we've been just Every 6 months, every year, as we has deliver more value, we just keep changing the prices.
So why is there no pushback? And I think this is the fear that people have, right? Is the pushback. So why is there no pushback? Well, there's no pushback because clients buy based on their perception of value. They don't buy based on price.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes, there's a certain segment for any product or any service. There's a certain segment of buyers that are what I call the cheapskates, right? I mean, so, yeah. And we're all cheapskates about something, right? Because we all have different values. So I'm a cheapskate about coffee. I don't care that it's, the finest brewed coffee. I'm happy to wait till I get to someone's office. Gurmeet, I'll wait till I get to your office and you can buy me a cup of coffee, right? Yeah. So I don't need to stop by Starbucks or some fancy coffee place. So there's a certain segment of those people for each one of your products or each one of your services. But the rest, everyone else buys based on perception of value. And then there are some people that they want everything that you can offer them because they've fallen in love with what you're able to do for them and the outcomes you can deliver. And whatever you bring them, they will buy. And this is where I think a lot of people miss out is that I call them velvet rope clients. They want to get behind the velvet rope of what your firm has to offer. The everything that's special you can offer, they want to get there and consume that, and they're willing to pay a big price for that. They're willing to pay a big price to be your number one client, that you're that they are your first priority.
Yeah. It's when we were trying to figure that out, we went to our top clients and I said, listen, what is the biggest problem you're trying to solve beside IT problem? And they said, well, training people is one of the problem. Okay, no worries. Let's include training a part of our services. And can I mark up 30%, 40%? They said, no problem. That was easy for them because that was a bigger problem they were trying to solve. You could add more value and then demand whatever price you want to do because you just solved the biggest problem they were up against.
Well, see, you hit on something there that I think is really vital. Is what you did there is you went to the client to ask, what's your big problem that you have? Forget what we offer. Tell us what your big problem is, right? And if we can't do anything about it, we'll tell you, but if we can, we will. And see, a lot of people don't even ask that question, right? Because they're so focused on their thing, whatever their thing is, whether it's IT services or a product or something like that. They don't talk about the organization itself and like, what are your big problems? What keeps you up at night? Right. I mean, what are some of the things that are really keeping you from getting to the goals you want to have? What are the organizational goals that you have? Right. Yeah. And when you lean into that, it's really a different mindset. It's getting your mindset out of what you do and leaning into the needs of others.
Well, the way I look at it, John, is that if my revenue is dependent on your problem, how many problems I can solve for you, don't I want to know every single problem do you have?
Yeah, you do.
So if my revenue of my company and my payroll depends on how many problems I can solve for you, then I want to know every single problem do you have, because more I solve, more I can generate revenue.
I think the problem is that a lot of small and medium-sized business owners don't come at it with that perspective, though, because they're so anxious for the sale that they're narrowly focused on what is going to affect the sale or not. And so they don't take the time to think wider and just say, hey, let's have a cup of coffee and talk about the bigger issues here, right?
Yeah. Because who knows, maybe there's more problem I can solve for you, right? So,
exactly.
I'm not going to take order. I already taken an order. I already solved a bunch of problems for you. We already built that relationship. We already have a trust. So if you trust me and tell me your problem, I may be able to solve some more for you because my revenue depends on you.
Yeah, and suddenly you become a person of value,
Yeah.
of significant value for that client.
Yeah. Very interesting. So let's talk about your journey, John. How did you get involved in a podcasting, a radio show, and how's been your journey in this?
Yeah, so I was in corporate America for a long time. Um, uh, was on Wall Street, so did in some investment banking and a lot of different activities around Wall Street. And I got to the point where I wanted to, have my own business, and I opened a business advisory practice. And what I found in that was I found that pricing was a problem, and it was a problem for me because I I was the same kind of practitioner that I just described earlier. I didn't know how to price what I was doing, or I thought I did, but I really didn't.
Did you
Um,
have a financial background or accounting background, John?
no, I had a financial background.
Okay,
Um,
that's
and so, I knew all the financials behind pricing. But the question is like, okay, how do you implement that, particularly when you never learned any of this, right?
yeah.
When um, so I got passionate about that, and I saw other business owners struggling with that, and so I decided to focus more and more on helping, in my case, professional service providers with their pricing. Another problem that services providers have in particular is business development.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what happened for me is and I discovered this through my involvement with Business Radio X, is the power of a podcast in terms of helping develop the relationships that lead to um, business development success for your firm. Um, you know, Relationships are where it's at when you're in professional services,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's the quality of your relationships that ultimately determine, um, in my view, the success of your practice. And what's the value of that network that you have? And are you at the center of their attention, right? And what are you doing for your network that keeps you top of mind for them, and positions you as a professional of value? And that's one thing I saw with podcasting, is that it enables you to open the doors of people that are hard to reach that you would like to know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it also helps you help others. And when you help others, it comes back to help you.
Yeah, it
So,
multiplies.
yeah. So, I guess I've got two different businesses, but they're interrelated because services providers have two big problems:
Mm-hmm.
pricing and business development. And so I'll work on two of those things, both of those things. So,
Very interesting.
yeah.
So, were you always good with the podcasting and video show? Did you have to, did you go through a learning curve and you had to pick up this skill set, or were you always good with that?
Uh, I was terrible, of course. I mean, I mean, unfortunately, my first show is out there somewhere. I'm not going to tell you where it is, Gurmeet. I don't want you to find it. But I mean, it was terrible. But I mean, you don't get anywhere if you don't like start and just keep going. And here's the thing: it's not hard to be um, a podcast host if you're just curious, if you just ask
Yeah.
questions, right? And you're genuinely interested in others and what they're all about. It's not hard to do that. So that's what I learned over time, is I just need to be keep at it, keep honing my craft, not get discouraged by how terrible I sound, and uh, make it all about the guest.
Yeah. No, it's you have a lot more experience than I do, John. I gone through similar stuff as well. It took me. I put it on a back burner. I'm gonna get to it one day for 3, 4 months. I was not getting anywhere. because I wasn't good at talking. One day I simply said, listen, I just need to get it out. It doesn't really matter how I sound. Nobody's gonna watch it. I'm just gonna get it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a repetition that over and over you keep doing that, and that's what makes you a little bit more comfortable, a little more better. But I think you're absolutely right. When you focus on a guest, you want to learn about the topic in front of you. You're more curious. I think that's all it takes, right? When you focus on those items, definitely it make you better anyway over the time, right? You keep doing it over, day after, you just get better over time.
Yeah, you do. And here's the thing. All the places where you think you made mistakes, a lot of people, they don't even know that, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they don't know what you didn't say. First of all, they don't know that at all. There's no way they can know that. So don't worry about that, right? They don't know that you stumbled in a certain place, or if they heard it, it really didn't register with them because they're so into the conversation that you're having with a guest that they're waiting to hear what that guest is going to say about the question you just asked. So, don't worry about all that. It's just worry about making it about the guest.
Yeah. And and you don't get this kind of content from any mainstream media, John. So if you look at me, do you think what I was going to ask you? Do you think that this is going to stay? The podcasting, this business content is here to stay for long run, long form content or podcasting here to stay, or you think that it's going to get dissolved in a mainstream media at one point?
No, it's not going to get dissolved into mainstream media because mainstream media wants to stick advertisements, and they've got other priorities. They're more interested in clicks, right? And what gets clicks, right? It's disasters, and the old saying, "If it bleeds, it leads."
Sensational stuff,
right? Sensational stuff, and conflict and people arguing and that kind of thing. And business content is not any of that. And so mainstream media is never going to focus on business leaders telling a great story. They'll focus on, the scandal, right? And they'll focus on you if you're on fire, but they're not going to focus on you telling a great story about how you've built your business. They could care less about that because it just doesn't get the clicks.
Yeah.
On a mass market basis.
Well, somehow the negativity on a social media or internet kind of spread faster than something positive, I guess, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Very interesting. So definitely, I learned so much from our discussion, John. Business leaders, they need help. How can they get help from you, John? Whether they need help with the pricing. I know a lot of business leader colleagues, end of the year, they're building on a strategy, what they're going to do for next year. So if they need help with there's so many blind spots. We are not expert on every area of the business. That's where we need help from other people to cover some of the blind spot or help us out to get there faster. Where can people, how people can get help in both areas, pricing and also the other area, if they want to learn how to do podcasts or start getting a word out on a business development?
Sure. Thank you for asking, Gurmeet. And again, thank you for having me on. This was a great discussion. I really enjoyed it. You're a great host, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I'm learning from people like you, John.
Oh, no. You were already great before I came along. So, but no, you can find me, probably the best way to reach me. You can email me, John, JOHN at johnray.co. johnray.co. That's a good place to email me for either of these interests, whether it's pricing or podcasting and what the opportunities are there. I've got a book coming out, and it's called The Generosity Mindset Method for Business Success.
Wow.
So
let me get the name right. It's Generosity Mindset for Business Success?
The Generosity Mindset Method for Business Success.
Very nice. Very good name.
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm. And the subtitle is raising a journey to raising your confidence, your value, and your prices. So, and that's really the continuum, right? It's confidence, then value, then pricing. So if you want to know more about that, you can go to the generositymindset.com to find out more there. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I publish regularly on LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn newsletter you can find by connecting with me. And I'm John Ray 1, the number 1, John Ray 1 on LinkedIn.
I'm going to include a link to all of that below this video as well. So whether people want to connect you on a LinkedIn or Business Radio X website, and and your and I need a link to your book as well when published. So give us a link. I'm going to include that below the video as well, so people can. When is the book coming out, John?
It'll be out in mid-December. So we're recording this, I guess, here at the end of October 2023, and it'll be out in December 2023.
Well, we got to record it again for when the book comes out, John. We'll talk about a book as well.
Okay. Well, I look forward to that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time, John. Thank you so much. I learned so much from our discussion. These are the area I know a lot of business leaders struggle, whether it's pricing, or simply getting a word out about the businesses and especially telling their stories, how they built a business, the lessons they learned. And I wish more business leaders take a call, at least they get something from our discussion and they get encouraged to come and share their stories as well on your podcast or on a radio show. I think business leaders need to share those stories and all the lessons they learn over the time. So, definitely, I learned so much from our discussion. I hope business leaders were watching. They learned so much, and have a discussion with you. Reach out to you from a link below we can include, and have a discussion and see where the discussion can take them.
That's right. Yep. Absolutely. And same here. I mean, I've learned a lot being with you, and thank you for that opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, John.
Thank you.